Okay, so here we're going to look at a typical transport exam question. Now, one thing I just want to point out before we start, exam questions quite often mix different topics together. So yeah, it's very important that you learn each topic individually, but then you also start to think about how other topics can link to the one that you're learning. Okay, so here what you've got a question that is identifying different types of transport by the letters P, Q, R, S and T. Now, what I would do in this question, I would first of all see the question and I would think, right, I need to think of all the key terms that come with diffusion, facilitated diffusion, active transport, core transport and osmosis. Now, if you watch the previous videos, you'll have covered all of these except the term core transport. Now, normally it's actually taught later on in the course because in a way, it kind of links a lot better to the kidney. But for this example, if we just think of the term core transport, core means two. So it's two transport. It transports two things at once. It's actually a specialized version of facilitated diffusion where two things move at once. So what I would do, I would think, right, diffusion. Simple diffusion is the movement of a non-polar molecule from a higher to a lower concentration. Facilitated diffusion is the movement of a polar molecule from a higher to a lower concentration, and it has to go through some kind of protein, so like a channel protein or a carrier protein. However, it is passive, it does not require any energy. Active transport is from a lower to a higher. It does require a carrier protein and it does require ATP. Core transport, as I've just mentioned, core just means two, so it moves two things. And osmosis, as we know, is the movement of water from where there is lots, so a higher water potential, to where there is less, so a lower water potential. Okay, so once you've got that in your head and you've got what each type of transport is, you can then look at the questions and you can try and pick out which bit actually identifies to that type of transport. Now, the mark scheme is actually at the end of the video, so I won't tell you anything now, but if you kind of pause the video now and you write down what is diffusion, facilitated diffusion, active transport and so on, it should make the question a lot easier. The next bit of the question is beginning to link different topics together. So the picture shows you this. It's a phospholipid bilayer with big things stuck in there. And the big things have to be proteins because we've learned the fluid mosaic model of a membrane. So we know that there must be some kind of channel or a carrier protein. And the question does talk about how a plant cell produces a cell wall, and it shows substrates going into these things that must be some kind of channel or carrier. And it does show that cellulose molecules come out. So it's a protein, definitely. It's a channel or a carrier protein, maybe, but it's also sticking together lots of substrate to make a bigger molecule. So let's move on to the question. So why is a protein? We kind of knew that. One function is to transport molecules, but we did know that because we knew about channel carriers. Use the information, describe the other function of why. So the fact that it's sticking things together, sticking substrates together to make cellulose, you've now got to go away and think what has to do that, what sticks molecules together. Now, a bit of a hint, it's not actually in your membranes topic, but it is one of the topics that you kind of cover in the first few weeks. And the last bit, what is the evidence in figure 3 that the phospholipid bilayer shown is part of a cell surface membrane? Again, this is linking to another part of the specification, but we know that if a plant cell is making cellulose, you've got to try and think to yourself, well, where is cellulose found in a plant? And then you can then make a link to it from there. So the mark scheme's on the next bit. If you want to now pause the video, rewind it a little bit and have a go at the questions yourself, make a few notes, obviously, get you thinking about it, and then you can then proceed through the video and look at the mark scheme. Okay, so hopefully you've now had a look at the questions and had a go at them. The mark scheme's all there. It's quite self-explanatory. Hopefully that's been a bit of use. Exam practice is all about having a go and getting it wrong, and it doesn't matter. Don't be the person who sits there waiting for the mark scheme, hoping that by some kind of magic you're going to absorb that mark scheme, because it won't happen. Have a go, get it wrong, it doesn't matter. We do learn from our mistakes. So the more mistakes you can make early on, the faster you actually begin to learn. So always have a go. Okay, take care.